Hey, Kyle, it's wonderful here again with another wrestling review. This time it's AEW Elevation and Being the Elite from June 27th, 2022. And it is the day straight after Forbidden Door, one of the greatest pay-per-view events I've ever seen. I know there was a lot of hate going in or what the build and all this, and what are all these new names and IWGP this and NJPW that and what is all this, and half of them are from Australia. I thought you were saying from Japan and all this kind of nonsense. But and of course it was a little bit of a Forbidden Door curse going on with all the unfortunate injuries and maybe even another injury. Um, Although we are hearing reports that Adam Cole seems to be all right. It may be a concussion, which is never good, but um, I don't think he had to go to the hospital or anything last night, and that did kind of rush the end of that match, it seems. But thankfully, it wasn't any worse than that. And despite all the setbacks and everything, it turned out to be an amazing event, a really good showing. Pretty much almost on the 20th anniversary, a little bit past the 20th anniversary of Vince McMahon having a monopoly on almost the wrestling world as a whole for all these. Of I saw people from old TNA or at least influence like from the X division back in the day, and then all the way through NXT Black and Gold and ROH and AEW, New Japan, Bullet Club, Rev Pro's representative from the UK, and all this stuff kind of just all came together. It was much more bigger than just an AEW and New Japan show. So definitely one of the greatest events I've ever seen, just as far as every single match was a banger. Almost 5 straight hours that seemed of pure wrestling that seemed to only go by uh, way quicker than a 3 hour Raw, that's for sure, even with the skipped commercials. So great stuff there. Not a ton of news coming out, but there is a few things. Like I said, Adam Cole seemed to have got an injury with the concussion last night, and he came into the event with a separate injury. So we'll probably be seeing Adam Cole getting a little bit of rest. We were hearing reports that Kyle O'Reilly was hurt as well before that event, and we haven't seen him wrestle in a while. But he was at Dynamite, so maybe he'll be back soon. They kind of seemingly wrote off Bobby Fish with a storyline injury for a little bit, and then of course all those big injuries might have got lost in the news that Sky Blue also got injured. I'm not quite sure where, but I do remember her having a really stiff match against Marina Shafir on Dark a couple weeks ago. So maybe it had something to do with that. But Sky Blue's out. Um, Red Velvet, remember, she said they're out and the baddies are looking for another. I think that was on Rampage or Dynamite last week. So Red Velvet's also out. Don't forget Layla Hirsch was already out. So of quite a few injuries up and down the roster, even the ones that aren't being talked about. And I'm sure I'm forgetting others, but let's get into it. We're going to start with Being the Elite, and really cool episode right off the bat this week. It was a lot of footage just from last night, so they did a good job of getting this out um, less than 24 hours after the event happened. And it starts with footage of the Bullet Club's entrance from the pay-per-view, and a little bit of just a little bit of their entrance and a little bit of the Sting dive, and they'll go back to that later. But I did notice it looked like Brandon Cutler must have had to sit in the crowd to tape this or to record it on his camera. Nick then tells a great story about Okada when he first saw him yesterday. Okada was like, Okada took his pants off to reveal that he was wearing Nick's old gear. Okada was wearing some Young Bucks gear, and this is a long running joke between Okada and Nick. Okada's been ribbing Nick for years, stealing his gear and wearing it. So Okada showed up here in Chicago, immediately dropped his pants to show that he was wearing the Young Bucks gear, tassels and all. Pretty funny. There is a picture out there with him doing the pose with Nick Jackson. So that was cool. Really quick thing here is Evil Uno and Brandon Cutler got to visit. I think it was the Bethesda Studios, and but they didn't get to show anything other than they were just about to go. So then a really important thing happened here. So I know that Matt Hardy has his own podcast, and I think Matt Hardy's released a statement about the whole Jeff situation and stuff, but I haven't yet to listen to it. I wasn't ready to listen to it, but then here's Matt Hardy talking about it on Being the Elite. So now um after Raw and after I do the review later, I'll be listening to that Matt Hardy what he had to say on his podcast, because we had Matt Hardy here on Being the Elite. he tells the story of Jeff coming to AEW and how excited they were and how they were going to cement their legacy. And the ladder match that Jeff didn't got arrested 2 days before the ladder match where they were supposed to win the titles and cement their legacy. But then Matt says, I don't blame Jeff. And then Matt yells, I'm the one that keeps bringing Jeff back. I'm the one obsessed with the legacy. And now he says, so what do I give a S about anymore? And walks off. So really powerful stuff. Really powerful promo here from Matt. I don't think we'll be seeing Matt say anything like this on actual Dynamite or Rampage. So this is the best you'll get as far as an in character explanation of the whole thing with Jeff from Matt. So really interesting stuff here. It's worth a watch. We go straight from that to the Hollywood hunk, Ryan Nemeth. He's in his wrestling trunks and he's poolside. He gets a call. I thought it was Alan Five Angels at first, but then I don't think it was. So I don't know who it was. But then there's a bunch of glitches that happen, and I don't really understand what's going on. And it kind of gets scary at a point. But thankfully it doesn't last too long. So now John Silver and Trent Beretta are backstage. They go to a replay from November on Being the Elite of John Silver beating Trent in a mustard toss battle. And John won that one. So now Trent wants a rematch. So last week, if you remember, Trent beat Daddy Magic in a hat on a handle battle. And so he's trying to win 2 competitions in a row here in 2 weeks. This is probably preliminary matches for trying to get to the BTE title eventually. They try for a while to throw mustard packets into a bowl from far away. The bowl was tipping over, so they fill it with water so it didn't fall. And they try for a while and fail, but finally John Silver retains his mustard championship. And Eddie Kingston I saw laughing in the background. Pretty funny. A lot better, a lot more interesting than last week's hat on a. Even Daddy Magic couldn't save that hat segment last week. Now we see a behind the scenes look at the Bucks and Kyle O'Reilly watching back their promo from Dynamite last week just to make sure everything was good and see if they needed to redo it or whatever. So that was kind of cool. They liked what they saw though. They were all laughing by the end of it. Now we see Uno, Silver, Reynolds, and 10, and they're talking about the door. If you remember last week on Being the Elite, they were looking for the forbidden door, but this time they don't use the word forbidden. They're just looking for the door. And then they're like, well, let's go find Sting. He probably knows about the door. So then we go to a Mark Sterling, smart Mark Sterling commercial. And this one isn't like the normal commercials he has. This one's all about the big Tony Nese versus Wheeler Yuta pure ROH pure title match tomorrow. That was set up on AEW Dark last week, and it'll be on Dark this week. So Wheeler was saying, I'm not scared to fight you for this title. No one can touch me under pure rules. And even though it's 24 hours before Blood and Guts, I'm not worried. So anyway, this is a Smart Mark Sterling commercial on BTE where Smart Mark's talking trash about Wheeler Yuta and putting over Tony Nese, basically. And he says that he ends it with, it's time for a real pure athlete. So we go right back to the Dark Order where we were right before that commercial. And they found a door and they said, well, Yuta said a door is great. Referencing that Yuta just went over to Japan for the best of the Super Juniors for a month. The Aussie Open walked by and Dark Order asked them about the door, but they tell the Dark Order to F off and walk off. That was pretty funny. So they opened this door that they were at, and it's smart Mark Sterling talking on a phone about being injured. But then I think he sees them and starts talking about something else. So I don't know why he was hiding that he was whining about being injured. So now we go to Matt Jackson's house, and he's in his closet. He's looking through all of his gear for some Bullet Club stuff to wear. And he goes through a ton of gear with pictures to accompany like when they actually wore them and what matches they wear. So a real trip down memory lane. This is a much watch segment for Bucks fans. And then Matt laughs a lot when he finds his old FTR gear, which if you remember, I think FTR now stands for Fear the Revival, but originally it was FUC the Revival, and that's pretty funny because a lot of people don't know the Bucks kind of created that name, and then when FTR was coming on over, they just ran with it. So backstage at the pay-per-view now, we get a slow motion of the Bucks showing the gear that they ended up choosing. The Bullet Club gear. It had like Ring of Honor patches on the jacket along with um, the New Japan logo. That was pretty cool. Throwback. And so, so they said it's been about 5 years since they wore that gear, and then they said the travel was terrible trying to get to Chicago for this event. So man, can you imagine if the Bucks after all the injuries and stuff, if the Bucks were running late and couldn't get there? We go back to the footage from Brandon sitting in the crowd, but they do end up showing two different shots or like two different angles from the crowd. So someone other than Brandon was also recording here. No clue who. And we see the full entrance of the Bullet Club and then the Sting full entrance as well, and the jump. And then they show some of the match. We don't get to hear them like usual in BTE because usually Brandon's out there ringside, so we can see everybody, hear everybody yelling. The wrestlers, I mean. And we get to see the full back rake from Matt from a different angle, and then we get to see Sting get his nipples twisted. I know the El Phantasmo tightrope walk, moonsault was on there as well, among other things. So pretty cool. These are always a good part of BT when you get to watch the Bucks matches from a different angle. And again, really cool to see stuff put out less than 24 hours from the match happening. So backstage after the match, or maybe even after the show, Matt and his son are walking around. We don't really get to see much though. Now we're outside by the trucks, and the Bucks are talking about the event, and they hope they don't get another cease and desist from all the two sweets tonight. That was pretty funny. They mentioned the curse, and they said that this was important to note. The Young Bucks match at Forbidden Door was changed 12 times according to the Young Bucks. And I believe them. Like it got changed at the very last minute again when Hiromu couldn't come over. So that's why it was such a late announcement on what the Bucks were actually going to do at Forbidden Door, because it changed 11 times, and then when they did announce it, it changed again. But they said despite all that, everything turned out great, and I definitely agree. And they said they're going to stay in Chicago and tour around Monday with the family, and then Tuesday they'll just head on right over to Detroit. And I've made that drive many a times. I live in Detroit, and I've been at Chicago wrestling shows. Not a bad drive at all. And great episode. That was the end of the episode, especially the Matt Hardy part. So definitely, if you're a Hardy fan, it's must watch to see the Matt Hardy part, and if you're a Bucks fan, it's must watch to see the trip down memory lane with all the gear. So now we go to Dark Elevation. It was taped Wednesday before Dynamite in Milwaukee. And first off the bat, this crowd is hot and for everything. And this Dark doesn't have a ton of marquee matches like we've kind of been getting on Dark Elevation for a while. A lot more squash matches this week. But I will say it seems like Tony Khan booked a lot of people that work in the Milwaukee area, because a lot of these quote unquote jobbers or the local talent were really getting cheered. So I think maybe that's why we got a little bit more squash matches. Is there must be a good thriving indie scene in Milwaukee. So Anthony Gogo is back on commentary this week, which I got a big cheer from. He was great last week. Anthony Gogo just showed so much charisma, on confidence and insight and um, all that. So Anthony Gogo is great at commentary, and he's with Mark Henry and Excalibur. And Anna Jade comes out first. She's got some good cheers. Her opponent is going to be Heather Reckless. I know we've seen her, I think recently. Heather Reckless gets big cheers too. Heather comes in with a 0-2 record in AEW. Anna's able to hit some new moves. And the announcers were really putting over, oh yeah, Anna's been improving. She's got some new moves in her arsenal and stuff. So this whole match was to put over the fact that Anna's getting new moves. And yes, she's super young. I think only 23, maybe 24 now, but she's already been in AEW for a while and is still that young. So the youngster Anna Jay has plenty of room to improve and become even better in the years to come. Great stuff there. But Heather does get a little bit of offense in on this match. Agogo says Anna was trained by the great QT Marshall, his own trainer in part of Team Factory. So I laughed at that. Nice spinning kick into the corner by Anna Jay, and then she hits like a Shining Wizard as well. A lot of aggression showed by Anna Jay. She makes Heather tap to the Queen Slayer. Uh, Pretty good stuff. Anna Jay's definitely improving. And the announcers did note that she wasn't wearing Dark Order gear, nor did she come out. And I can't remember, but maybe she did, or I can't remember at all if she did the Dark Order hand gesture, but maybe, just maybe, she's um, getting away from them a little bit. Next match is Hobbs and Starks, and they come out to big cheers, and Taz is going to accompany them to the ring. And I was thinking, wow, it's been a while. And right on cue, Excalibur goes, well, it's been a while since Taz has joined them to the ring. So pretty interesting there. But spoiler alert, Taz does nothing. You don't ever hear Taz yell. You never hear him bang the mat. Taz literally did nothing out there. So that was weird. Anyway, Jordan Cross and Joey Jet are going to be the opponents, and they get really big cheers. And there's even a Joey chant to start the match. So like I was saying, it seems like these are some big time independent guys from the Milwaukee area, and maybe that's why we got a little more squash matches tonight to get them on the card. The crowd was loving it. The crowd is hot throughout this entire Dark Elevation taping. So shout out to Milwaukee. Joey Jet is in with Hobbs, and Joey Jet's actually taller and maybe even weighs more, but Hobbs much more muscular. So if you catch my drift, Joey runs right into Hobbs trying to like with a shoulder tackle or whatever, but just Joey flies right off of Hobbs and goes down. Hobbs then destroys him and Jordan Cross when he gets tagged in with a bunch of strikes in the corner. Hobbs does. Starks then does a victory lap around the ring and tags in. Jordan gets a shot in on Starks, which made Starks mad, so he slapped the taste out of Jordan's mouth. Really loud open hand slap and into the Rochambeau for the 1-2-3 as Hobbs takes out Joey on the apron while that was happening. Easy win here for Hobbs and Starks. And like I said, Taz did absolutely nothing. No pounding the mat, no get him or put him in this or come on, or I don't think he even said anything when Hobbs Starks did the victory lap. Like I don't even think he gave him he was wearing glasses, so you couldn't even really sunglasses, so you couldn't even really see if he was looking at him. Anyway, next match is Ruby Soho versus Misa Kate. And we've seen Misa Kate recently for sure. I think even 2 weeks ago. So I was pretty sure the crowd liked her, but then when the match started, she's definitely got a heel gimmick. But I think the crowd was getting into her heel persona anyway. Ruby Soho out to some big cheers, and Misa takes control early to big boost. So Misa Kate has like a hip hop gimmick, and Ruby Soho, of course, with the punk gimmick. So kind of a natural rivalry here. And the crowd's definitely on Ruby Soho's side. Great stuff by Misa getting she gets a chant for Ruby by mockingly chanting Ruby while rubbing Ruby's face across the ropes. So great heel stuff here. Part of Misa's job here is to not only take the pinfall as the jobber or the local talent, but also get the crowd invested in her opponent, which she does perfectly here. So really good stuff. Ruby then gets right back to Misa with some massive strikes. Then Ruby goes up to the top rope, but Misa is able to dodge a stomp attempt and super kicks Ruby. So maybe AEW liked what they saw out of Misha a few weeks ago, because this is not a complete squash match. Meats definitely was getting some offense in. If you watch Dark and Dark Elevation, this is how it goes. Like, for example, I think one of the more recent examples is Lee Moriarty. He went from just being one of the local guys. I think probably his first match he got no offense, and slowly but surely he was still losing but getting more offense every match and hitting a couple of big impact moves. And then he had a close to 10-minute match. I forget who it was against, but it was like somebody on the main roster, of course, and um, Lee Moriarty like had a really competitive match, ended up losing in 10 minutes, but ever since then, his very next match after that, he won. And then basically he was on Dynamite here and there. So that's how it goes. That's why I love to see some of these local talent can become a part of the roster in a hurry like that, and you can watch the progression from getting no offense to a little bit to all the way to winning their first match. So I love that, and I bring all this up because not only was Misa getting a little, Misa Kate was getting some offense in this match, but I also bring that up because we've got a couple openings in the women's division. I don't know how long Sky Blue's going to be out, but there goes, basically the Sky Blue was on Dark Elevation every single week, so she's out injured, and I know Mei Saruga, or not Mei Saruga, but Emi Sakura also went over back to Japan. So there is a couple openings on the very bottom of the AEW women's roster. So someone like a Misa Kate here, who they've brought back a couple times in a row now and let her get a little bit of offense in on Ruby Soho, tells me that maybe a Misa Kate can take over a role for on the lower end of the card. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Swerve and Our Glory's out next. And Keith Lee, of course, reluctantly the fist bump Swerve, but eventually does it. So they're still teasing dissension there. We got Vic Capri and GPA as the opponents. I've never heard of these guys, but GPA as in grade point average. That's a pretty funny name. Swerve and Our Glory chant from the crowd right at the start. So they didn't do the Who's House, Swerve's House. They did a Swerve and Our Glory. It was to the tune of like the White Stripes song. And GPA is going to start out with Keith Lee. Keith Lee, of course, is way bigger. And like I've been saying, Anthony Gogo is great on commentary. So Gogo smartly asks Mark Henry, who's sitting right next to him, and Gogo goes, "Hey, Mark, so how do you take down a guy like yourself or Keith Lee?" Which is super smart because Gogo might have to fight Keith Lee at any moment. He might have to fight Keith Lee next week or in a month. So um, good stuff there. I mean, Henry doesn't really say anything like extraordinary. He basically says, well, you got to take him down by the legs. And once you get him down, you got to keep him down, which thanks, Mark. But the point was that it was really smart. And Gogo is an awesome heel commentator, bro. I'm telling you. Which is something. Do they even have a heel commentator in AEW? I guess Jericho. Jericho's on Rampage like every week. So that was a dumb question. And I know um, Starks did it a lot. And Starks was amazing at it too. So if we ever need an all active wrestlers announced team, it would definitely be Jericho, Starks, and a Gogo. Excuse me. So like I said, Keith is now dominating both men. Both of them are much smaller than Keith Lee. We get a massive Beal to Vic from Lee, of course. So the crowd chants one more time, and Keith Lee obliges and sends him into the atmosphere, sends Vic. And then Henry goes, Mark Henry says, "Oh, he just tossed him like salad." I don't know if that. Nobody tell him. Anyway, Swerve tags in, and Keith's not happy about that. It was like he tagged him from behind. Swerve hits one move and picks up the win. And before the segment can end, we get the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny, and they come out and they stare down Swerve and Lee. So I'm guessing that'll be a match maybe on Rampage or next week's Dark Elevation. So we'll have to look out for that. But the only thing to note is Butcher was eating a chicken leg while this stare down was happening. So the next match is Serpentico. He's out first, and he finally snapped in the Excalibur even brings it up. Serpentico finally snapped his big losing streak last week on Dark against Vari Morales. And it was Serpentico's first win of 2022, and it brings his record to 13 wins, 83 losses. All Ego Ethan Page is his opponent, and Agogo puts over Ethan Page big time. So that's something Agogo's been doing all night, as if they're an AEW signed heel that he was really putting them over. So Agogo's a great heel announcer here. Dan Lambert did come out with Ethan Page. Ethan goes for the Eagle's Edge right as the bell rings, trying to end it immediately. Serpentico bails, and then it's really funny. He tries to go after Dan Lambert by shooting going for like a leg, like you do in amateur wrestling or MMA, like over and over, and but not actually touching Dan Lambert. So that was a funny little spot here. But Ethan Page isn't laughing and grabs Serpentico by the mask, pulls him back in the ring. He hits like one or two moves and then immediately hits the Ego's Edge for the win. So Serpentico just getting destroyed here, but a funny little part, and the crowd got to see Ethan Page. Next match is John Silver. He's out to big cheers and he's by himself. And I already wrote, oh, he's by himself. And as I'm writing that, Excalibur goes, oh, well, Silver's probably out by himself here because Dark Order's in the main event. So It's like Excalibur was reading my mind, but KM is his opponent. You might remember KM from Impact, but you might also not remember KM from Impact because KM was in Impact during the like worst period, even worse than the Hogan era was the GFW Jarrett selling fake gold era of Impact. And KM was from that era. So KM's a really big guy if you've never seen him, and much taller than Silver. Silver is able to outsmart KM to take control right away. I think he like baited him in and then kicked his knee. John goes for a German right away, but KM's able to block it. Then Silver fights back, hits some big chops. He gets a boot to the back of KM's head and then deadlifts the much taller KM with the German suplex. Then Silver hits the spin doctor, which also looked impressive. So for the win was the spin doctor. So all of that looks super impressive, especially since KM was like 8 to 10 inches taller and probably like 280 pounds, not too far away from 300. So great stuff here from John Silver. That makes me want to see a John Silver versus Claudio Castagnoli in a who's the most pound for pound strongest in the company match. That would be a good one. The next match is about to start, and the lights go out. It's the House of Black's music hitting, and all you see at first is Julia Hart in a black suit with no emotion on her face. So really cool here. All of a sudden, appearing behind her is Buddy Matthews and Brody King, and the three of them come out and make the House of Black entrance. It was really cool. I love this entrance here with Julia Hart, and boy, did she make an upgrade. No offense to the Varsity Blondes, but the upgrade from the Varsity Blondes to Buddy Matthews and Brody King. Hello. So Gogo says Brody is one of his favorites. He's a big, powerful bastard. And so, like I said, Gogo's putting over all the heels perfectly tonight. Buddy's going to start the match and he dominates. Brody now tags in and dominates even more. And by the way, this is the only match I didn't get the opponents. I was so enamored with their entrance. And then there was such a domination that I never even heard Excalibur saying their names. Anyway, Brody tags in, dominates even more. Double team move, and the guy is pretty much like out of it already. So Buddy throws him over to his partner to tag in. They want to beat up the other guy instead of just getting the win. Then they use the legal man like a dart or like a javelin, throwing him into his partner. Buddy then throws the legal man into Brody's arms, and Brody plants him right on his head with a fire thunder driver. 1, 2, 3. What a decimation here! But this was more about let's iron out our Julia Hart, Buddy Matthews, Brody King entrance before we debut it on Dynamite or Rampage, and wow, that's already looking good. So I cannot wait. This is another amazing tag team. I'm assuming this is the tag team we'll get going forward. I know Brody King and Malachi Black formed a tag team in the past, but I think putting Buddy Matthews with Brody King is the right move, and then you can have Malachi Black on his own. Remember, he has separate music from Malachi Black has like a whole separate entrance and music from the House of Black that I did miss seeing, and it was really great seeing that his singles entrance and song last night at Forbidden Door. So I think all that's great. If they stay one big faction, have Julia Hart come out with them when they have just a tag match. Of course, they'll have trios matches as well. It's only a matter of time before we get the trios titles introduced. So all of this looks great. Next is the main event. So we're on the last match here, and it's going to be like Excalibur said, the Dark Order, and representing them, it'll be Evil Uno, Reynolds, and 10. And it says this is their trios debut, this threesome. So Max Caster's music plays, and he comes out with the Gun Club, and then Billy and Bones are there too, and they do the whole routine. But I'm really not feeling the whole routine. I know a lot of people love the routine, but I really only like the Max Caster raps. But I guess I'm not going to complain as long as I just keep getting Max Caster raps every week. So anyway, this rap is he starts out about like politics, and some of it was like local to Milwaukee, so I wasn't really sure what was going on. But then he says that they beat the Dark Order 8,000 times, and that they're just a bigger disappointment than the Drake album. So ruining the Dark Order here. Really, the only part like I said, I like of the whole routine is the Max Caster rap. But Dark Order starts strong. All three do the Dark Order pose in the ring once they clear it. And actually, the bell hasn't even rang yet, so now the bell rings. Gogo talks after being quiet for a while and says, "Did he just really say scissor me daddy-o?" And Excalibur laughs and says, "Well, it wasn't daddy-o." So that's funny. Um, that was a good one. Perfect response from Excalibur. I wonder if a Go-Go did that on accident or if that was just a Go-Go. In addition to all this other stuff that a Go-Go's great at on commentary, maybe a Go-Go has amazing comedic timing and chops for comedy as well. Because if he did that on purpose, because he knows exactly what was said, and then he set up Excalibur for that joke, that's amazing because that was legitimately funny. The bell rings, like I said. Colton makes the Dark Order hand sign mockingly, and then does the crotch chop right after it. Then Max tags in and does the exact same thing. This is over to like the guys on the apron. Austin gets in and fails to keep Uno in the ring after he had isolated Uno for a while. And 10 in with some fire. 10 takes all three out. Huge spine buster on Colton by 10. Austin misses wildly on some punches, and Austin is just looking silly in this match. First, he let Uno immediately get out and tag, then these weak looking punches that were never going to hit the broadside of a barn. So Austin's looking really silly, and I write down almost a little too much. And I also write down before the match was over, it's okay to be silly, but you have to win matches here and there if you're going to be taken as a credible like person. Like they do a great job with Orange Cassidy. Like it was really important that Orange Cassidy beat Adam Cole in that lights out match. That gives him so much in the bank. And now that he's had went toe to toe with Will Ospreay, he's Orange has even more money in the bank, so to speak, of credit, a line of credit to do silly comedy things. Because if you don't have like wins in your bank as a comedy character who's also trying to win wrestling matches, then you become almost sadly like the Dark Order is now. Nobody takes the Dark Order serious. Just look at it. Dark Order was nowhere to be seen on Forbidden Door. I know there's a lot of Dark Order fans, but they're silly in comedy, but they also don't have any wins in their bank, so that they become just a joke comedy character that doesn't even get featured on pay-per-views. So it's definitely a close thing. Like they 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 showed us right away that Danhausen isn't supposed to be taken as a serious competitor in the ring when they had Tony Nese beat him in like 5 seconds. So I was getting a little bit worried here with all the silly stuff that the Gun Club is doing. I'm like, I write down, since the Dark Order already like this win here for the Dark Order isn't going to erase the months and months and years almost of them being a comedy thing that doesn't win. So I was desperate for the Gun Club and Max to get the win here, and thankfully they do, which was great to see here. So, like I said, Austin was looking silly in this match, and Billy tries to help from the apron. Billy wasn't a part of the match; he was just ringside. And Austin's able to get a roll up and a foot on the rope for the win, and thank God, that's perfect. So it doesn't matter if it's a cheating win or anything like that. They cheated like 3 times over on one play just to get the win, but that doesn't matter. They still got to win. At the end of the day, this is a show about wrestling, and I get that comedy characters are a part of wrestling, but like I've explained, like Orange Cassidy has a lot of money in his bank to do some comedy segment different things now. But someone like the Dark Order, it's going to take them, like they've gone so far beyond the realm of comedy and losing that they would literally, they're beyond the point of return, the Dark Order is. So for the Dark Order to ever be taken seriously, they would have to drop the comedy and the stuff and all the stuff that the people like about him. So I don't ever see the Dark Order. For you to become someone that wins, you would have to then leave the Dark Order. So I'm glad. So all of that to say that I'm glad that the Guns won the main event here. So I'm gonna get going. I'll be back in a about 3 hours or so for the Raw review, and you can find the Forbidden Door pay-per-view review as well. If you missed that, go check that out. I'll be back tomorrow to let you know about Dark. I'll also be here for NXT, and then I review some of the smaller companies as well as New Japan. They're not a smaller company, but all the New Japan shows, as well as MLW, NWA, and Impact. So all those are on the on my channel, so check that out, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for watching.